Okay, so everyone, welcome to this evening's meeting of the Advisory Committee. My name is Arthur Franzak. I'm the chair of the committee. And as a preliminary matter, wanted to remind people that we're having town meetings such as this, town functions, committee meetings online due to the pandemic COVID crisis. And this is being recorded for future playback, both audio and video. I would like to start by calling the roll of the advisory committee members just to confirm that we have a quorum and that everyone can hear everybody else. We'll go in reverse alphabetical order. Kiara Moore.
Here, I wasn't expecting to be first.
Haha, I got to keep people on their toes. Poor Kristen, I always pick on her first, so we're going to have to do it in reverse order. Mr. Lutz, David Lutz.
I'm here.
Susan Klein.
Here.
Thank you. Jackie Katz.
Here.
Jonathan Hurwitz.
Here.
Michael Huff.
Here.
I am here. Brian Beachkovsky.
I'm here.
And Kristen Balash.
Here.
Look at that. We got 9 out of 9. Outstanding. Outstanding. We have a number of guests tonight. I will introduce them as we get to the various articles. Although I would comment that hang on a second, let me double check. Yes, we have our administrator, Amy Sheehan, who's doing lots of work. Thanks for diving into this. This is her second meeting. And we also, of course, have Blythe and our town administrator, as well as Todd Lindmark from the finance area of the town. So thanks everyone for joining us. Let me get any other preliminaries here out of the way. As I mentioned before, this is being recorded. We are in a Zoom session, and to keep things flowing, I will present the agenda items one at a time. Once the presenters have been recognized and present their material, I like to open it up to questions from the advisory committee. Please use that wonderful raise your hand feature on the participants list. We'll answer questions in the order which you guys raise your hands. I like to keep it to one question plus a follow-up question, such that others can participate. Please be additive if something's already been discussed or commented upon. If we could just have that new material, that's most helpful in keeping the meeting expeditious and moving along. I will then open it up to other participants from the public who are joining us. I think we have several here tonight. Welcome. Thank you for spending your time helping us think through and review the materials for the upcoming town meeting. Okay. Having said that, I think we are done with the preliminaries. Tonight's agenda is, share my screen. Okay, tonight's agenda, we're going to start by discussing Article 7. And after that, 4, 5, and 8 in that order. Thanks for putting this together, Amy. We will start with Ms. Proto, our Recreation Director, and Ms. Andrade, our CPC Chairperson, along with Mr. Rigdon, who's the Chair of the Recreation Committee. Did you have any preambles you wanted to give, Blythe, or can we just dive right into Article 7? I take that as we should just dive right in.
Sorry, yes, dive away.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's our agenda. Let me switch to the article. And if any one of the three of you want to go ahead and get started, we'd love to hear your comments and presentation.
Okay, so since I'm not muted, I think I'd like to ask Will to actually tell how this 43-acre potential acquisition came about.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. And Ann and Cindy, please jump in if you hear something wrong or something you'd like to add or correct or whatever. So first of all, thank you all for having me and Ann and Cindy in front of you this evening. For those that don't know me, my name is Will Rigdon, and I am the chair of the Rec Commission here in town. So just a little bit about this article and kind of how it came to be. So as I understand it, about 7 or 8 years ago, the town of Norfolk was given the opportunity to purchase a parcel of land from the Department of Corrections at a deep discount, which at the time was designed to be an offset for prison mitigation funding that was not being given in that particular fiscal year. So at that time, the town elected to take 5 acres of that land. And I don't have the exact number in front of me, but at the same time, Walpole got somewhere around 63, 64 acres of a different parcel in their town for the same purpose that we received ours. So fast forward to a couple of years ago, when I got on the Recreation Commission, we activated the provisions of that original piece of legislation that was passed at the State House. And we went forward to town meeting, got the necessary funding out of free cash to purchase the 5 acres of land. And when we sat down and kind of took a look at what 5 acres is, and I guess I should back up. The land that we're talking about is abuts the Pond Street Recreation Complex. I left out that important detail. I don't have a map on me, but it's kind of the surrounding 43 acres is the whole parcel around the Pond Street Rec Complex. So when we actually looked at 5 acres, there wasn't really much we could do with it. It would kind of just sit there. It would be very hard to even pick and choose 5 acres to even in a mishmash around to really be of substance. So I and Ann approached Representative Dooley about this, and he was able to sit down with the Department of Correction, and this many years later, they agreed to convey the rest of that parcel, so 43 acres in total, to us at the same discounted rate that they offered, 7, 8 years ago. So that is what this article essentially is proposing. This was passed by the House of Representatives, the Senate, this summer, I believe the end of July, signed by Governor Baker recently. So now the ball's kind of in the town's court to decide when and if to purchase the parcel of land. So again, it's 43 acres, all abutting the Pond Street Recreation Complex. So that's kind of the overview of it. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, so happy to answer anything that anyone may have to ask.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Looking for those hands going up. Yes. Mr. Huff.
Sorry, I was scrambling for the computer button. Yeah, so when you say abutting, frontage on Pond Street, all behind the existing parcel, like, could you just give a sense of where the land is?
Yeah, so there is a rough map, and my bad for not. I can try to find it here and share my screen.
Sure.
Just give me a moment to open it up. But essentially, the way it is it goes from so if you're looking directly at the Pond Street complex from across the street, there's a little bit of frontage on Pond Street all the way down, nearing Needham Street, not quite that far down. And then it would go essentially down towards the Arnold Road area. And then there's a body of water way back that would be the back portion of the property. Let me just, here we go. Let me see. I haven't done a screen share before, so. If I can. Can anyone see that?
Nope.
You might need to get permission from the host if the security settings.
Oh, hang on.
No,
There
no,
we-
I've already done it.
There we go.
There you go.
All right, is that visible?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you. It is.
So that's the 43 acres in play. This right here is the current Pond Street complex. And then the red outline is approximately what we're talking about with 43 acres.
Got it. Interesting. Okay, does that answer your question, Mike?
The first question, I have
Yeah,
another
follow
question.
up. Go ahead. Yes, follow up.
Just, is there an existing thought about what to do with it?
So what our goal is to expand recreational opportunities to the town. So Anne can probably speak to some of the ideas that she's garnered over the years. I think the addition of soccer and baseball fields would be in play. There is a waterway back there. We are probably looking at the idea of trails back there. So we don't have an exact firm plan. I think that would be something that would go through many different meetings, and we would want input from not only the different organizations that use them, but the town in general as to what they would want to see, the use of the land. But in general, our idea is to have that space to expand what we can offer currently in terms of recreation in town.
I will add that a recreation master plan was done a few years ago, and there was evaluation of what fields we had and the usage that we had, and there is a shortage of fields in Norfolk. A lot of our fields are overused. They're grass fields, and many times when you have grass fields, you rotate them to give some fields a rest, not necessarily every year, but even every other year, and we really don't have that availability. So we rest fields when they basically aren't usable anymore, and we have to rebuild them. So that's for the soccer fields. Baseball and softball, the good news is they're expanding and growing. So we're also short on those fields as well, especially the larger baseball field, it's a good sized field. You need about 3 acres to build a Babe Ruth field. And we have one currently at Pond Street. The one we have at Freeman Kennedy is a very small Babe Ruth field. The especially right field is very short. So we really can't host anyone there older than, I think, about 13, unless you want to hit the cars in the parking lot.
No, that is not a feature. Okay, so that's very helpful. I see several hands are up. Before I go to them, Blythe, did you want to add something to the discussion?
Very quickly, Anne gave a good overview, but if you had your CIP handy, there's pages 118 and 119 cover the acquisition and then the overview of the expansion of the onto this new property.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question, Mr. Lutz. Yes, go ahead.
I know a lot of this. I mean, I'd be interested in maybe getting a better sense of how many fields you're considering. A lot of this land is wet. It's wetlands. It's classified as wetlands. I know some of it's got an Army Corps restriction on it.
It does.
And so obviously, somewhat almost you're going to have a hard time putting any active use recreation on that. Passive use possibly, but the trails and things like that would be interesting. I'm just wondering if there's a consideration for fields, how many you're considering and where they might go.
Yeah, so, and sorry to jump in there.
Nope.
And you're probably going to say the same thing. I'm going to say, so when we brought this forward to CPC, we had Rich McCarthy, our town planner, take a look at the parcel and give us sort of an estimation on what would be wetland and what would be upland and usable, all that sort of thing. So he wrote to us that he estimates of that 43, 8 acres would be wetland. So it's an estimation, as he put it, but it certainly was a number that we were happy to hear. And it wasn't, 30, 25, 40 acres. So obviously there's still a lot that has to take place in terms of surveying, environmental studies, which Cindy has talked to the state about, that would probably dig a little deeper into that. But the initial estimate that we received was promising.
So I will bring up the other point. It's and you have a very good point, Dave. There definitely are wetlands there, so that could work. That may work to our advantage as far as passive recreation, because we would like to expand the trails and have facilities in town that are not just active recreation. We do have a wonderful walking track that is used all the time, year round, at Pond Street, and we would like to expand that. One of issue that we have with our fields in town right now is that, and for instance, the backfield, I don't know if you're familiar with it or other people are familiar with it at Pond Street.
It's wet.
The backfield at Pond Street?
It used to be wet when my kids were little.
Oh, well, the turtles do like it. That's, I will say that. So that field is a great length, but it's too narrow to be a regulation field. And it's actually too narrow to even make it a 9v9 versus an 11v11. So although we would like to add a Babe Ruth field, some of the other areas, we don't necessarily need to build an entire field. We need to do some expansion of a field, then that would open up a lot more use. In adding a Babe Ruth field to Pond Street, we would probably eliminate the Babe Ruth field at Freeman Kennedy, which would also open up other use. So it's a lot. It is adding fields, but a lot of it is rearranging.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up question, David?
I did. I'd be 8 acres. I'm sort of familiar with the land down there, and I think 8 acres is an underestimate. It would be maybe interesting to have someone from the Conservation Commission look at it.
Yeah,
the agent.
I'm not going to fight you on that one. I mean, I think we felt the same way as you did in terms of wetlands back there, but I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be completely prohibitive. You know, and like Ann said, we're not just talking fields. There's plenty of opportunity here for some new and exciting stuff that goes beyond.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that part of it. And I mean, things to keep in mind though is that if you're abutting a wetlands, you're going to have restrictions on the kinds of maintenance you can do in the fields. I know that we probably have a very aggressive IPM or no use of pesticides thing, but those are the kinds of considerations you're going to have if you're even abutting the wetlands. So
when we acquired the 5 acres way back when, DCAM did do some evaluation and did sort of plug in baseball fields. And when we were doing the master plan, we did the same. And again, it's some of the land that we would be expanding is the land we already have.
Right.
Plus some of the acreage that is there. Right. So it's not just taking the new acreage and putting the field in the middle of that. It's doing some rearranging with the acreage what we already have. And again, it's not necessary. It's not adding a whole new soccer field. And if I recall correctly, and I could look at some old maps, both the baseball field, the Babe Ruth size baseball field, which is a full size field, and the Little League field that were proposed, you encompass the current land as well as the new land.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Blythe, you had a comment?
I didn't. I just hadn't lowered my hand. Sorry.
I got it. Any other questions from the advisory committee? I saw a couple of hands go down, so perhaps some information helped answer questions beforehand. Okay, well, really appreciate the information, and thanks for joining us tonight. Was there anything else you guys wanted to share in closing, or if not, I think we're all set.
It's my pleasure. Thank you all. Any questions, you can reach out to me anytime.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Let me stop my screen share here.
Yeah, I was looking at the location in Google Maps, the Pond Street complex being in the center. Interesting. Okay, back to our agenda. So we will now go on to DPW. Blythe, was there an order you wanted to go in here?
I think if I sent, so Amy helped send out a spreadsheet that we're using to track various articles, and there's a page in there called Cash and Debt Funded Capital, and that covers the items in Articles 4 and 5. It's the third sheet. One more. There you go. So just to give everyone the big picture, of all the things that are in the capital budget marked as FY21, these are the ones that we are prioritizing for this fall. And there are more, but we're very cognizant of wanting to make sure that we have sufficient, free cash on hand for whatever winter's going to bring us, whatever, the FY22 budget might not bring us. And so trying to stick to the things that we think are most important and how we would fund them. So this is the list. And as you can see, it's a total of, ideally it's a total of $785,000. Of that, we're looking to fund just over $400,000 from free cash, and the other three items just under $360,000 from borrowing. And the ones we borrowed, Todd and I recommend that it be those three public works items, just because of the type of acquisition that they are and the ability to borrow them for a longer period of time. Other ones are more near term or have a lower lifespan or aren't really good candidates for that. So joining us tonight is obviously Todd's here for any questions that you have, and Blair is here as well because the three DPW projects are obviously his. So I also took a moment and jotted down the page numbers from the CIP, and I can tell anybody what page they're on if you want to look them up as well later. But that's my quick overview, and I know we touched on some of this last week, but happy to go into as much detail as you like.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? No questions up front. Any comments, Mr. Crane, you wanted to make, or? Dave, I see Mr. Lutz has a question.
He's on mute, I think.
Yeah, you're still muted there, Dave.
Yes, I am.
There you go.
I'm apologizing because I was supposed to reach out to Mr. Crane, and the holiday kind of threw my schedule all out of whack. And I realized this afternoon that it wasn't Tuesday, it was Wednesday. So I did not reach out to him. And the only reason I realized it, I saw he was on the agenda, and I figured I'd allow all of us to hear from him. So welcome. And I do, I brought it up last week with Blythe, and I just wanted to ask about the dump truck is the snowplow truck, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So is it usable? I mean, I asked Blythe if it had other uses besides snow plowing. Does it have other uses besides snow plowing?
It does have other uses besides snow plowing, although with the age being 30 years old and having been around, we try not to use it.
No, not that one. The new one. If you bought a new, yeah.
Yes, the new truck does get the roll-off truck, or is that what you're referring to, the one we purchased last year?
This new truck, replacing this truck.
Oh, replacing this truck will have it'll have different body on the back of it, so it will be able to be used year-round for hauling topsoil, other materials. It will be an all-around use.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Several hands are up here. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, just procedurally, I guess it's procedure. The document I have is proposed CIP. Is that is proposed still the right language for what the CIP planning document is?
It is, Mike. I mean, ideally, we're gonna develop a routine and a schedule by which we put this out earlier than we did this year. Select board and to the extent advisory wants to can vet it, and then at some point it becomes adopted, and we seek, we hope to be able to fund everything that's in it. But in order to get to that point, we're going to need to have some conversations in the coming months over priorities and timing and and tax rates and all that go into this.
Okay.
We're not coming
I
close.
just didn't know if this was still being, so I understand. So it's in process in terms of overall planning and adopting, but this is a document that we're using. I just didn't know if I had a draft as well.
Nope, you have the latest version, and like I said, we've picked what we think is the most critical, and limiting to that. Like you noticed, I put down the jaws of life on the list and the phone system, but I'm not suggesting we fund them this fall. Really need to do them, but hopefully we can make that happen in the spring. Just trying to be very careful and not spend more than we need to address capital.
For those following along at home, the CIP document we're referring to is the Capital Improvement Plan, which Blythe, Todd, and many others, I'm sure, put together. It's very long, very detailed, and it's great. So encourage folks who are interested to, can folks request that from your office, Blythe?
Sure, yep.
Any follow-up questions, Mike? No, all set, very good. Brian, go ahead.
I think mine is a fairly trivial question. That's the road work there is for the truck, not the actual execution of the road work, right?
No, what's road work?
Yes, actual road work.
So we're borrowing for road work, and that's allowable as opposed to it being normally I'm thinking of a capital expense as normally what you would borrow against, and it would have some retained value. I was wondering then on the discussion on why not use free cash for the work being done versus something that and borrow for the cars that have a longer life.
Todd, do you want to jump in on that?
No.
Please.
So with respect to borrowing, Blythe and I kind of look at, where our debt is currently, where our debt's going to be coming off the books over the next several years, both inside the limit and outside the limit, exempt and non-exempt debt. We have debt that's coming off inside the limit, and in order to keep it, within the budget approximations of where we are year over year, we're figuring on borrowing some monies in order to keep that kind of consistent and follow through again year over year. Works out to be about close to 400,000. So when we look at the items here, we said, okay, we'll choose these three particulars just because they're DPW and it's a little bit easier to group some things together sometimes. You can borrow for various reasons, and depending on what you're borrowing for, it's dictated by the state, the length of term that you can borrow. With bands, which is the borrow in anticipation of bond anticipation notes, you're basically borrowing in anticipation of actually potentially turning it over to a bond, but you might also just pay it off prior to actually turning it or converting it over to a bond. So we do have some bands that we currently have, which is on a couple of vehicles. Again, this would just roll out the vehicles. Lifespan is 5 years for band purposes, borrowing purposes. Road work is up to 10 years. So if we were to put the cruisers in here, we'd only be able to spread this out over 5 years, not 10 years that we're looking to spread it out to make things kind of even. Does that make sense?
So the F-250 and the dump truck both have a 10-year?
No, so the vehicles would be 5, and then the road work would be 10. And that's just a statute requirement.
Okay.
We actually borrowed for the road work in this article last year. Not that that makes a difference, but just to give you some history.
Yes. Okay. And okay.
And
Any follow-up question?
money's cheap enough right now, so, you know, the interest rate that we're being charged for it is next to nothing.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for doing this.
I heard Foxborough just issued a float a ban, and it was like 0.5% what they're paying. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's, you know, I think we always have to be very careful about how much debt we have, but I think when you're in an economy like this, it makes sense to handle something like this, you know, in that manner.
Any other questions on that, Brian? You're good to go.
Are there, I understand the interest rates are low. Are there origination fees for those notes that are probably substantial when compared to the lifetime interest?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Susan, you have your hand up next. Please go ahead.
So there's been a lot more comment. Excuse me. There's been a lot of talk about how easy.
We're having trouble hearing you if you can adjust your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
It's garbly, a little warbly.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. There we go.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was just saying that there's been a lot of talk that this is going to be an easy warrant because it's, you know, during COVID and we're trying to keep it small. I think you guys should be prepared that this will not be very popular and it will not be very easy to pass. This is a lot of money that I don't think people were expecting to spend right now. And just based on how the spring warrant went with people being worried about COVID, I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of worry over spending $700,000. And I know some of it's free cash and some of it's a loan, but it's more of a comment than a question. I just wanted Blythe and Todd and the advisory board to be prepared for that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll pass with flying colors and there won't be any issues.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands up from the committee, anyone have any questions from the general audience or beyond? Kristen, actually, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Are we asking questions about non-DPW at this point? That's my first question.
Oh, we're trying to kind of keep it to Article 4.
Okay,
but
I know they're like all related, so I will hold my question then.
Okay. Okay, understood.
I'm happy to take other questions on anything on the list, Arthur.
Okay, I mean, if there is something you have, Kristen, maybe we could take care of it now.
Sure. Don't want to ruin the flow though. Can you explain more about the voting equipment? What is that and what is the time frame for that?
So yes, so we need to have this voting equipment in place for next, the annual election for the town in May. We are fully expecting the results of the census to show that we have an additional precinct. And so we need the equipment, the poll pads, the tabulator, the voting booths, to be able to be ready for that. Otherwise, we would have waited on this one till later.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on Article 4? Well, and now we're actually into Article 5 with the capital items. Did you want to talk about anything else on the spreadsheet? Oh, hang on a second. I think David has his hand up.
I was going to follow up on what Kristen asked. Is Blythe, you're serious? I don't understand how the precinct thing works, but census data is going to be approved by then and available, and isn't that a legislative process to add a precinct, or how's that work?
Well, as best as I've been following it, sounds like the Census Bureau is planning to have the report in the hands of the president by the end of the calendar year. So, and our election is in May. So, you know, if we don't fund it now, we don't have, other than a reserve fund, we don't have a way to fund it before we need it.
And I'm going to be kind of a smart guy here, but what happened? We had 4 precincts up until about 10 years ago. What happened to all the voting equipment? It's the same machines, right? You probably don't know the answer to that, Blythe. So.
Gonna have to get Carol for you.
Could we make a note, Amy, to talk to Carol Green, our town clerk, with a question about the voting equipment?
I'm sure we surplused it, Arthur. I just, it just seems like a really short time frame for the federal census data to work its way down to our level. But I mean, having dealt with this stuff when I worked in the legislature, we were dealing with it for fall elections, not for anything that happened in the spring. But
I think it's just a timing issue this year.
Okay.
Now, I have to come clean. I actually bought the extra voting equipment on auction for a couple $100, and we're using it as a coffee table here. So, okay, I am of course kidding. Mr. Huff, yes, sir. Mike, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm going backwards, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm looking at the CIP and the $100,000 for roads. Actually, it's Susan's comment that kind of got me thinking. Is like, okay, why now? And you know, so the $100,000 for roads, does that tie somewhere to the CIP so that in a big way we can say yes, it's in the CIP and or not?
So page 54 of the document has talks to this item, excuse me, page 51. And we've identified that in order to not lose ground on the standard for our roads right now, we need to spend $980,000. What we're proposing to do is, like we did last fall, to count together the Chapter 90 money, which is about just under $400,000 that we expect to get. It's level funded again next year, and add $100,000 of town money, which is what's on this warrant, and that will bring us to just under $500,000, or about half of what we should be spending. And we've heard loud and clear that people are very frustrated with the quality of our roads, and we're continuing to slide backwards. So this is a small attempt to continue to put a little bit of the town's money into it besides what we get from the state.
We're doing half the job than what was proposed, and
Exactly.
That is correct.
Yep. Same thing with police cars. We haven't been able to replace those regularly. The chief has requested 3, and we're proposing 2, because we need to be careful, as Susan said, and not looking to buy everything we might think we need to have or would like to have.
You have a follow-up question, Mike? Your face looks
I'm just seeing
questioning.
if that squares with what I like. You know, I'm chewing on it.
Okay, chew it, chew it. Next in line, David, go ahead with your question.
I was just going to follow up. Historically, enhanced road work has had a fairly strong lobby at town meeting. So, and $100,000 is literally almost a drop in the bucket. There's been many town meetings where we've spent a half an hour, 40 minutes talking about road work. So, because people wanted more. And Mr. Crane, make sure you come with a list of those roads that are going to be done, because you're going to be asked if my street's on the list. So,
well, we revamped that list a little bit today.
I'm kidding about my street, but I meant, you know,
the initial list that we came up with, a conservative list that just this afternoon, as a matter of fact, came to just under $1 million. So at that point, we had to start prioritizing, and we were able to whittle it down to just under 500. But there are certainly a lot of roads in town, and that's a tough conversation to have.
Thank you. Any other questions about the capital spreadsheet? Or Blythe, was there anything else on this spreadsheet you wanted to share? The other tabs, or are we good?
The other tab on transfers, I think we were going to talk about next week. That's our running list right now. We can talk about it if you like, or we can wait. That's still in draft, but that's what we're thinking is going to be list. And then that's just the list of articles. Though I must tell you that I received very late this afternoon an email from the person who's been putting together signatures for a citizen's petition. She's planning to drop it off tomorrow. So I expect we'll end up with 9 articles.
Oh, okay. This is the animal one, the pet
Correct.
thing? Right, okay.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, well, seeing no other help, wait a minute. Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm harping just a little bit, just so I understand so we're borrowing this $100,000 to put towards roads. We really want to put, in an ideal situation, we'd be putting another $500,000. That's my
Excellent. Yes.
and so we've made the decision not, even though money's cheap, because borrowing more money now would put us over some other debt limit.
Not over a debt limit, but we have had a consistent amount. When we borrow inside the levy, you know, it's part of your overall budget. And so what we try to do is hit the sweet spot between funding things in this manner and not causing peaks and valleys in our overall operating budget. So I think, if I recall correctly, we have some tanks that were removed coming off the list of debt being paid off, and we're trying to infill it with about the same amount of debt so that that number stays constant, just so that it's not a strain on the budget annually. We could, you know, I'm sure people would be thrilled if we increase this number above 100,000, but we're trying to be careful about how it impacts the overall budget when we're in the midst of that next spring.
So just so I'm fully clear, we add this $100,000, we get $500,000 worth of new road, and it doesn't change the budget at all.
Generally, I would say yes. Todd, would you agree?
No, Mike, I think you just said we're gonna get $500,000.
No, we're borrowing 100, we get 400 from.
Oh, chapter 90, okay, yep.
Yeah,
Correct.
so we get $500,000 for new roads. All we've done was, we haven't even added new debt. We've just replaced old debt.
Correct.
And so it's sort of
A continuation.
about, okay, how are we gonna do this in the middle of a pandemic? We can sort of say it doesn't affect the budget.
Correct.
Right.
Interesting.
You should lead with that at town meeting, not wait for someone to ask it and then explain it at that point. That literally needs to be your starting jumping off point. I'm again, you know me, when I tell you I have an idea, it's the hill I'm going to die on. You got to tell them it's not going to cost them anything. This is not a time to go in there and ask for it, get people all upset about it, and then at the end of it go, oh, hey, but it's not going to change anything because we're just replacing old debt. Tell them that up front. Thank you.
That's a good point. And that's the same kind of strategy where we're handling the transfers. There's no free cash to fund the transfers. It's all within money that we either had or were getting in new revenue from the state we hadn't had before. And as a matter of fact, it's less because we don't want to spend money that we shouldn't spend right now as we continue through the pandemic and unsure of next year's budget.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. I see no other, wait a minute. Kristen, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think for the other items on the capital detail, you know, for example, the cruisers, I think people may ask the same question. And so leading with, well, they really need 3, we're going to do 2. Like showing how it's actually not even fully funding, I think we'll get people to say yes, more than if they think it's more than they need. I mean, we all know that you guys are doing that, but I think starting with, you know, this is not even close to what we need is kind of a good framing.
Yeah.
The other piece is something like the library, right? Where, you know, I'm curious about the painting of the library because I can already hear people say, well, it's not even open, right? So, you know, kind of going through some of those details and explaining exactly what it is and why it's needed now versus waiting would be helpful, I think.
Yeah, like the lion's share of that cost is exterior. And I can't remember the type of material that the library exterior is finished in. It's not wood, it's something slightly different. And I guess when it starts to go bad, it's really expensive to replace. So like 75,000 of this is some repairs and repainting, so we don't spend more to fix it later.
Right.
And it's cheaper if we've got a painter under contract to do whatever touch up we need inside at the same time, so we can finish it and be done with it. Otherwise, you know, if Matt said it can go another year, it wouldn't be on the list. And like the police radios, we bought half last year. Now we're buying the other half.
Right. They don't work without the other half being there, if I recall
Yeah,
correctly.
because
So,
half the people still need a replacement radio. So, so yeah, that's how we approached all of this is, you know, jaws of life. It would be great to have a new set that are, you know, work far better than the old hydraulic ones we have, but it's not the time to ask. You know, it's just not. So.
Okay.
thank you.
Are you all set, Kristen? Mike, go ahead. You had your hand up next.
Sorry, yeah, I'm a Gemini. You know the Gemini joke? Like, I'm a Gemini and so am I. Here's the other side of here's the other side of the same thing, which is you're saying that we need $1 million to put in the roads, and you know, and I understand that there is a lot of the town just wants us to be budget neutral. We don't know. We're concerned. I am very concerned about living in. I'm not sure if I should be concerned about living in a town in which the roads aren't going to work because we haven't invested in them the way that we should, and this $1 million or $500,000 that's going underfunded is just going to roll up, and we're going to have to pay that piper down the line. Or I've heard criticism, and I don't believe this criticism at all, but that, hey, these are fluffy numbers. They're not what we really need. And Blythe, I understand from our conversations and sitting in these meetings with you, you're saying that, no, this is really what we need. These are true numbers. And so I don't, maybe I represent a part of the town that says, you know, money's cheap, let's do what we need to do. Even if that means increasing the budget. Or is there just no appetite? I am a lone wolf on that.
Oh, I would very much like to, but I'm anxious that, you know, I don't know whether the state is going to be able to fund the large, you know, large grants that we get at the same level in FY22. And so I'd rather wait till next spring and know that that's going to be a little more set because before we say, let's put some more into it. I also, you know, right now I think the town is doing fairly well in terms of tax collection and local receipts. And we're very fortunate in that way compared to other communities. But I just feel like we just need to be very cautious till we get to the other side of this. And then I think I'd really like to have a conversation about how we can have a strategy which says, okay, this year it's 100,000, next year it's 200, the year after it's 300. So we finally start to catch up.
I trust you, and I mean, I'm happy to scrutinize, but I trust your instinct on this. But I also think that there's always a crisis. You know, we're gonna need a new school. We're gonna need, you know, ... You know, you have a whole list of things that we're not taking care of. At some point, you know, the quality of life in Norfolk is gonna deteriorate because we haven't taken care of what we should have taken care of. And I mean, and maybe while rates are low.
And that's where I want to have the discussion so that we can say, well, how much of a priority is capital items for the town, and what are we going to get to the point where maybe we dedicate a certain percentage of our budget to it, and we stick to it even if it's hard, and we cut other things, you know, we have leaner services in some way. I mean,
I'd be in favor.
Yeah, that's where I hope we get to.
Thank you. Kiara, yes, your question.
Thanks. I was trying to find the CIP and I couldn't find it in my email, so I'll look for it later. But looking at this as a whole here, and thinking particularly about the vehicles, I just wanted to hear if there was any consideration to purchasing lower emission vehicles or hybrid vehicles where possible?
Great question. I believe that the police cruisers next year will be hybrids. I think they were hoping that would be in circulation this year with the one we did buy this past year, but I don't think that happened. But I believe they are coming. For the fire vehicle, I don't know the answer to that one. And just in case anyone's asking, this one is a replacement of a 2015 vehicle. And what we're going to do is downcycle the 2015 to get rid of I think it's a 2007 vehicle and fire that really needs to go to the boneyard too.
Do you have a follow-up question, Kara?
No, thank you.
Very good. Susan, yes, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Funny, I too am a Gemini, which is odd that we're all in here, but I agree that at this time money is cheap and we should consider funding more things right now while we can. But I also know that that doesn't generally go over well. There's a large portion of citizens in town who say that Norfolk overspends as it is, and we should stop spending. Have you thought about, Blythe, presenting 2 warrant articles with different amounts of money? Say this one, and you tout it as pass this one, but it doesn't increase our budget at all, or pass this one, it will increase the budget, but we're going to get all of the road work done at once, so to speak.
Hadn't thought about that. Was trying to take the super conservative approach this fall. I think, Todd, yes?
Yeah. So Susan, with respect to the debt, there's 2 components of debt. There's the exempt debt and the non-exempt and non-exempt. This is going to be inside the limit. So this is within our budget. So we anticipate this to cost us about $80,000 spread out over the next 5 to 6 years. And we'll pay it off. And that takes up the gap in the debt that we already have. If we increase within the budget, that means we have to pull out somewhere else. So whether we have to hit the electric lines or, pick another line that's in the budget, we have to pull from that. The only other way to get more money would be to go and ask for an override. And I believe we both know where that would go. So I don't think we can we have these discussions day in and day out. How do we best align this? How do we get the most bang for our buck? What do we need to buy? What's the priorities? These are not, silly conversations that we have. Is to come up and say, what's the best thing for Norfolk? What can we make sure that all the departments, their needs are satisfied to the best of our ability within our financial constraints? Unfortunately, we do have some financial constraints. Money is cheap, yes. Problem is trying to be able to get that money and keep it within the budget and be able to make sure all of the departments are happy too. That's the 12 plates of spinning that we have to accomplish every day. If that makes sense. So
we're also trying to leave some capacity. So in a future year, when something else comes off, we can infill it with a new project or more road work or whatever. Again, trying to keep that impact the town's budget level.
Do you have a follow-up question, Susan?
Not really a follow-up question, more of a, so we had a similar discussion in another committee that I'm on, in that if you bring it to the town and they vote on it, you get your direction, right? So let's say you bring both and they say they vote for this one, then they don't want to see their budget or their taxes go up. If the other one passes, then that they are prioritizing capital expenses over the budget, and so to speak. I'm not pushing for one or the other. I truly am not. I do not have a real strong opinion one way or the other. I just think that sometimes we should consider giving people options, because if you're presented with A and B, or you're only presented with A, you see what I'm saying? Like, sometimes people want a choice, and you will get your direction from how people vote. Yes, I understand it's a risk. Yes, I understand it's not being conservative. I do get all of that, but it is just a question to the town. And if that's who shows up to vote, and that's who comes to the meeting and passes it or doesn't pass it, then you know which direction the town's appetite is. Just
No,
my,
I think it's a great point. And I think I'd like both the select board and advisory to kind of think that through a bit more, and then let's decide if we want to do that in the spring and offer it. I'm all for it.
okay.
Yeah, I think people's questions as I'm reading it revolve around, you've said several times, Blythe, about trying to stimulate a discussion
Mhm.
regarding capital and such. And like, who exactly is that discussion with? Like, would the select board lead this? I think we're indicating as a group that love to get some thinking about when would be the right time to ratchet that up in a responsible way such that our capital obligations are being met. I don't know if maybe no one takes the first step because nobody thinks that it'll ever pass town meeting, in which case it'll never happen. So I'm not sure what the venue is, but I don't know if the select board goes first. I think maybe we're saying, hey, we'd love to see something.
Well, maybe there
Either-
could be a joint discussion about it, maybe in December before we really dig into the operating budget and after town meeting.
Sure. Very good. Do you have a follow-up? Actually, you were all set, I think, Susan. Any other questions for Blythe or Todd? Seeing none, we will go on to Article 8, which is the Silver Fox Road Public Way. Article 8, let's change gears here. Any questions people have about Silver Fox Road?
Rich is in the Conservation Commission meeting tonight, so he wasn't able to join ours as well. But there is, I have no news for you tonight except for the planning board approved it last night, one of the steps in the process. So it goes back to the select board next week to vote to lay it out. So it can be voted on at town meeting.
Very good.
Is that, sorry,
Yes, Dave, go ahead.
does that mean we can't vote on it until after the selectmen have voted on it?
No, I think you can vote on it tonight if you want to. There's no, unless a resident of the street comes next week and tells them something we don't know about, I see this being a very straightforward issue. Not even an issue.
Okay. Well, I see no hands up either in the general audience. I think it's general audience or ourselves. So I've sort of saved the voting on these for the end. The agenda has this sort of voting after each item. But do folks want to make, we've talked about Articles 4, 5, 7, and 8. I'll go to 4 real quickly just to do this in order. Is 4 something we feel like it's finished enough to vote on, Blythe? You're muted.
Unless you have more questions or more details we can get you, I think we're ready.
I want to look at a wetlands map.
Oh, before we get to that? Okay.
Yeah. I really want to get a better sense of how wet it is.
Moving
And
on
I can take what Will has, but I'm hoping there's a better map kicking around that I can look at GIS and do a better comparison. But
okay, yeah, no, that's fine. We have time.
Okay.
There aren't that many articles. I'm sure we'll be able to vote on everything. Article 5, our discussion of the capital items and the detail we were just looking at. Or folks,
make a motion to,
yeah, go ahead, please.
I make a motion to approve this, recommend that, whatever we have to say on this. I vote that we approve this article for consideration for fall town meeting.
And we may want to cite the actual amount here. So this would be a total capital budget of 785. Let me just stop here.
No, 401,230.
Right. So if you could make your motion.
I move that we approve Article 5 for an amount of 401,230.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Discussion. Any discussion on Article 5?
I don't have them in front of me, but don't we have to approve, is the free cash part a separate article?
That's what this one is.
The motion will say it's from free cash.
So this is the free cash one and we have to make a motion. The one where we're taking out the loan is another one?
Yes.
That's Article 4, the borrowing.
Okay. Okay, well, when we were talking about Article 4, I think David was referring to wetlands. So since I don't have them in front of me.
Oh,
I
no,
assume that was-
wait, am I confusing myself?
Well,
Yeah.
somebody's confusing me because you referred to Article 4 as wetlands. And now you're
I
telling me that-
apologize. I thought we were talking about Article 7 because it was the first one on the agenda. I'm sorry.
So we need to approve, if we're going to approve it, we need to approve 4 and 5.
Right. I
You want-
apologize.
You want to wait on the rec department one.
Exactly.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve Article 4.
Actually, if we could pause on that, Susan, there's already been a motion made for 5. I'd like to finish that first. We'll definitely
Okay.
do both, but so David's already made a motion. And I think I'm waiting for a second.
Brian, Mike seconded it.
Mike, so thank you, Mike. So make sure and record that, Amy, thank you. So we have a motion to approve Article 5, which covers the free cash spending of the capital items. Any discussion on the article?
Just point of order. What happens if we approve Article 5 and don't approve Article 4?
I don't believe that's going to happen, but
We don't get the roads.
I think he means at town meeting. I don't think he means on the advisory board.
No, I mean in the advisory board.
We don't. It would go to town meeting with our recommending a vote of no.
they're separate articles. It could be a split. I don't think that makes much sense in this context, but so any other discussion on Article 5? Okay, seeing no hands up, I'll go ahead and call the vote. So all in favor of approving Article 5 with the $401,230 spend of free cash. We'll try this by voice vote. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, it is unanimous. I'll take a motion for Article 4.
I motion to approve Article 4.
Second.
Okay, Susan moved and Dave seconded. Any discussion on Article, and also just so we have it down, this is for $785,230 of, I'm sorry, no, this is for the borrowing, correct, Blythe?
359,000.
So Article 4 is for $359,000 of borrowing to support the capital items. Any discussion, any hands up about Article 4? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of passing Article 4, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Narrowly avoided the splits. All right. I say sarcastically. Okay, very good. 4 and 5 is done, which takes us now to Article 7, which I believe is what you were interested in getting some more information on,
Yes.
Mr. Lutz.
Yes, please.
Okay, very good.
So I have the Massachusetts GIS up, and I can share a screen, and you can see what they have as marked wetland.
Go right ahead. Yes, thanks. Right.
Uh,
Let's have a look.
Looks like Dave's trying to say something.
Oh, nice. There we go.
So you can see the wetland that they marked is actually just in these two parts, one on that point and one here. And I think our, I don't have the other map of the proposed part, but it roughly goes in this area. So I think that is what they're talking about. Let me zoom in one further. Is that 8 acres would be the portion that is within this area here and this area over there. So according to
The
this,
darker shaded section, yeah.
yeah, so this is the Mass GIS official marking that they have.
There's an Army Corps restriction on some of this too, which doesn't show up here.
Is that one of the
Flood, it's a
toggles that we
flood,
can-
it's a flood control thing. I don't even know.
Okay. If there's a toggle I can turn on that you know of, let me know. Otherwise, I'll maybe this doesn't answer your question.
Is that helpful, David, in your consideration of Article 7?
I sort of want to see this. Can we wait until next week?
Yeah, if there's more research folks want to do, of course,
Thank you.
there's not a rush. So we can hold off on Article 7. Moving to Article 8, which is the Silver Fox Road acceptance. Do we have any motions on Article 8?
Motion to approve Article 8.
By Kristen, and do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Moved and seconded to approve Article 8. Any discussion? Looking for any hands up. Seeing none, all in favor of approving Article 8 and accepting the road, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. It is unanimous. So we have unanimous votes on 4, 5, and 8 tonight. All right. Feel the momentum. Going back to our agenda. Articles, and I think you may have a hard stop soon, David, if you're still with us.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to pick somebody up that was supposed to get in earlier.
Understood.
so-
I don't think we have anything to approve in the way of minutes. Is that correct?
No, yes, Amy, I did see your minutes, and I've been going through them. I haven't finished yet. They'll be ready for next week. I'm gonna probably send you an email with the strikeouts, and we can talk about our mutual formats.
Sure.
I have a
Next,
question.
yes, go ahead. Blythe, yes.
I just want to be clear how we're disseminating the warrant this fall. I'm going to assume that we're mailing the warrant to everyone. I just want to make sure so that Amy and I have some direction.
I believe that was the understanding of the committee last time that we met, that during the COVID restrictions, that it made a lot of sense for us to mail for both the special as well as the spring. Is there discussion on that? Do folks want to raise their hand and add something to that decision? No, yes. So it looks like we're all set. So yes, please.
Great. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, no postcards this year. Okay. So we've covered our items. Now we could assign articles, which is the last bit of unfinished business here. Although we haven't really finished discussing in depth. David, yes, you had your hand up.
I was gonna say, I have to leave, but feel free to assign me anything you'd like. I can't believe I just said that, but
Okay.
Be
Articles
kind,
1 through 8
but be
are
fair.
David's.
bye-bye, everyone. See you next
Thank you.
week.
Thank you, David. Kristen, yes, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a question about the citizens petition. Can you remind me if we vote on those or not? And if there is, would we want to bring in the petitioner next week or the week after to talk to us about it?
It's my experience that yes, we very much do vote on citizens petitions. We won't make the motion on the town meeting floor. That's generally the wrinkle. One of you will stand up and I'll second it. But yeah, in the case of a citizen petition, they actually make the motion on town meeting floor or the lawn. But yes, we very much vote on them.
Okay.
I,
Yeah, the person reached out to me and just asked if she should expect to meet with us. And I just said I would I know she's talking to Blythe and she's talking to Carol Green tomorrow. But I figured I'd also ask here in case we knew.
Yeah, I told her by email tonight that she should expect to be contacted by the clerk, Amy, to coordinate coming in to see you guys, and she should plan to attend the moderators meeting as well.
So when we look at our articles here, we'll probably get a 9.
So-
Yes, sorry.
You're gonna get a 9.
Yeah, Arthur, can we wait to assign articles until they've all been either approved or IP'd or
Sure, yes.
rejected? Just so that we
That's
we do that all at once, just so it doesn't get confusing.
Understood. Yeah, we can handle that next time. And just to cover what's left, we have voted on, oh, here, let's try to do a little editing here. 4, 5, and 8.
7. Oh, no, 7 we didn't, sorry.
Yeah. We almost did 7. So next week, we're going to have discussion on, I believe it's 1, 2, and 3, if I'm correct. Is that your recollection, Amy?
Yes, it is.
So if we have all of those on the 14th, just to make a little note to myself here. I think this is my own copy of Blythe, so I don't know that I'm messing with anything. It would be nice to also do the citizens petitioner next week, if that's possible. So Kristen, if you could forward the contact information to Amy, it would be great if we could reach out to the petitioner. I think we'll want to wait till we get the heads up from Blythe tomorrow that it's official, but nonetheless, it'd be great to have her come. And do we?
She's coming in the morning to drop it off, so we'll let you know as soon as it's verified, and I'll make sure Amy knows how to reach her.
Appreciate that.
That would be great. My connection is Facebook, so I don't have her email either. So Blythe, if you want to.
I got that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Social media, so many different venues. Now, do we need to talk about CPC? Oh, I'm sorry, we just did. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the town committees. No, we don't need to talk about that. So really, we're all locked and loaded for our next meeting. We'll, of course, finish our discussion of the wetlands and such. So we'll have 5 articles to talk about at our next meeting. If you can put that down as our agenda, Amy, that would be great, as well as meeting minute review and the assignment of articles for the warrant.
I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize. Is Article 6 something that we're not voting on?
Here, reports from town committees. Yes, that's just not something that we vote on.
Okay.
I'm not
So
sure
I
we're gonna have
expect
any-
you have all the information from me that you need for 1, 2, and 3. I don't expect anything to change in the next week, but if it does, I will certainly send it along.
Excellent, thank you. So that concludes our agenda. Mike, yes, you had a question.
Not a question, just share a thought, which is I think that the level of organization that this information came to me was just unbelievably great. And I just want to say thank you. Like all of the efforts, I feel much more prepared for this meeting than I've ever felt before. So thank you so much for the efforts to do that.
Thank you, Blythe. Thank you, Todd, and all of your team. Yes, I feel very on the ball here, so this is great. So any other discussion or business, folks? Cindy, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I was sitting in here at the very end and I saw that Dave Lutz had some additional questions on the warrant article that CPC is proposing. So I was going to ask if you could please forward any specific questions to myself and Anne and Will, or at least myself and Anne, so that whatever meeting you decide to reconsider or take it up again, I should say, that we could be prepared with answers. I know he had some questions about wetlands, but you know, I'd like to be able to
respond. Yes, I
yeah, respond and be
For sure.
prepared with whatever questions your board might have.
Well, apologies for having to have you guys come back twice.
No, that's okay.
Well, why don't we, Amy, can we put that article first on the agenda for the 14th for next week? I'm sorry, not the 14th, the 21st. What am I doing? Today's the 14th. So we can take care of that right up front and let you all get on your way. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. And the other thing the only other thing I was going to mention is I know there weren't any questions about the monetary amount. So if anyone has any of those, I'd like to be able to address those too.
Monetary amount, understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought I saw Kristen, your hand was up, but now it's down. So, okay. We're good to go. Any other questions or comments people want to share tonight? That being, okay, no one having any other business, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, now was that, I know Kristen seconded. Who made the motion?
Got it.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Excellent. Thanks so much, everyone. We made fantastic time tonight, and I will see you next Wednesday.